This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising Air Force and community leaders who seek to define the future. Learn powerful work and life tactics to tackle any challenge. I'm your host, Gabriel Gabrock Avila. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Gabrock back on the mic once again. Hope you guys are enjoying and being safe out there, being well out there. From the last episode, talking about the Baltimore Open, I started to get back into my training bit, and I am sore. I am really sore. I started doing more, getting a little bit more CrossFit built in there too. I'm just hella sore, but it is what it is. I got to get back into it. Looking forward to that. Going back onto the normal scheduled topics of leadership and all that kind of thing. Not that weightlifting is not about leadership, but I think the majority of the audience here is more interested in Air Force leadership. So I'm going back into that grind. So I mentioned last week that I had some stuff already cooking, and actually happened for this week's episode. And because I knew that on Friday, it was his last Friday, I was actually invited to go speak on a pre-command, what do you want to call it? Well, it was, I don't know what the official name of it is called, but it was it was for maintenance officers that were they were selected already for command and taken over this summer. And so like most of the functional communities when you get selected for command, there's usually two charm schools you have to go to. So one of them is like as far as being an incoming squad commander. The first one is going to be your MAJCOM. So your where you go to learn about so I went to the ACC one and the PACAF Commander Conference just to get to learn that chain of command. And then the second one is going to be your functional command. So if you're going to be a maintenance officer, cyber officer, all that jazz. So you go to two different charm schools, two very different, distinct audiences. You know, you're going to be, the functional one is talking about your function. The other one is talking about your chain of command and how you fit into that bigger picture. So both of them were fantastic. And so I actually was invited by one of the seminar organizers, shout out Brian Spores, a fellow Highlander from NAU. He got me hooked up with to be part of the panel with two other graduated squadron commanders to talk about what to do the first 90 days within command. And so I think there was like 30 something plus attendees at the seminar. So obviously with all the COVID stuff, normally this would be happening somewhere physically in person. But instead, this was conducted virtually via Zoom. And so I was able to do that on Friday afternoon. So it was really cool. The way we did it was, and shout out to Jan Gerganis. She was actually part of the team as well that helped set up a really, really very well-run event. And so the way it worked is for all the people that are in there, we had it was like speed dating. So we had 20 minutes between us three. So it was me and two other commanders. They were actually proper maintenance commanders. And so I was the anomaly. The reason why I got invited is because Brian knew that I'm interested in leadership kind of stuff. And I think just to give us a different flavor to the seminar, just not only have maintainers there. And so that's the reason why he invited me. So I was happy that I was selected to participate. So you do it via Zoom. It is very well run as far as like speed dating. So I had, instead of having all 30 something attendees at once, and then we're just kind of doing the fire and panel as if we were in person, which would work if we were in person. Virtually, though, so we had 20 minutes. So 20 minutes, they would rotate 10-ish people around, and so I had 20 minutes direct where I was able to say what I wanted to say as far as the first 90 days, and then offer some, be there for any questions and answer session. So very similar. I've done this before all the time. First one I've done virtually before, but it was very, very well done. So shout out to the entire crew that helped facilitate this event. And so what I want to do this week is I'm going to give the same spiel that I gave last week, and it's talking about, from my perspective, of what a commander should be doing on their first 90 days. So, background, some of us we were sharing notes back and forth as far as what we wanted to cover, really just make sure I don't think we had anything that was contrarian to each other, but maybe just to deconflict and not say the same things, just to offer some fresh perspectives going into the seminar. And so as for the other two commanders, what they did was they actually, when you hear about something the first 90 days, and I see why they organize their thoughts like this, they presented their information chronologically. So they're like, here's the things you want to do in the first 30 days, first 60 days, first 90 days, and they kind of went along that phase, which is good. And that is definitely a way to present the information. I didn't do that. I ended up going, like usual, I'll try and find a different angle, a different method to share the same information relevant to the subject, but do it from a different perspective. So instead of doing chronologically, I thought about it actually like from orbits, as far as like what would be orbits may be the wrong word, but like I went in 3 different directions. So the first direction is down. So it's going to be within your squadron. Here are some things you should do and not do within your first 90 days. Second perspective is across. It's your peers, things you should and should not be doing with your fellow squadron commanders. And then finally, the last one was up, what you should and should not be doing with your wing commander. And so I felt like that was going to be a different perspective, and I liked how I organized the information. So I'm going to present those here in this week's episode. So like I said, 3 different directions: down, across, up. But before we get into that, there was actually one thing I said, and it served as a stepping stone for what to do internal to your squadron. And the first thing you should be doing the first 90 days, it actually starts before your first 90 days of squadron command. It should be, you need to have your leadership philosophy down. And so, is your personal leadership philosophy. I was thinking about it now. I was like, you should have your own internal leadership philosophy. You should have developed this as an officer, as you encounter other people. I'm sure you've seen them before. And I even said, you saw these long, drawn-out ass ones that are 3 pages long. Nobody wants to read that. Hopefully it's not live, laugh, love or some random thing you saw at Target. You should have a leadership philosophy that actually means something to you, because you're going to be the one having to sell it. So this goes directly into one of the first things internally to do for the first 90 days after you take squadron command. You need to take that leadership philosophy and you need to hit the road. You need to actually go to, and I recommended going into distinct audiences and give and deliver your leadership philosophies, but in distinct audiences. Don't do it squadron wide, all the squadron over at once. Go airmen, NCOs, senior NCOs, civilians, officers, all that jazz. Because I think your leadership philosophy, you need to tailor that delivery to that audience. Just like when you're interfacing with an airman, you're probably going to be talking differently and talking about different stuff compared to a senior NCO. And that's not good or bad. It is what it is. And so, but if you know how to deliver your leadership philosophy across all those audiences, you tailor it them, yet it still maintains that common thread across all of the delivery points. That's where you're going to be like, all right, cool. I've already introduced, here's what I'm about. I'm about this life, whatever this is. You should be able to do it within 15 minutes-ish. It shouldn't be a long and drawn-out leadership philosophy, but it's definitely something that you want your new teammates to understand what you're all about. So make sure within the first, I'd say 30 days, that's definitely what you want to do. But at minimum, the first 90 days, one of the first things you do with the command, internal to the squadron, I should say. Second thing, I recommended that you should take the time to analyze the current squadron battle rhythm. And what you need to do is kind of understand, not only for this internally into the squadron, I'll say that, trying to keep focused in that direction. So just take a look, what events do you attend already pre-scheduled for you to attend as a squadron commander? Which events are going on where you're not there, right? There's definitely some flight commander level things and that kind of stuff. Maybe some events led by the chief or the shirt, and that's okay that you're not there. Just understand where they're all at. And then understand, is this correct for me? Is when you're looking at the internal squadron battle rhythm, ask yourself, is it optimized for the squadron? Not for you as the commander. Is it optimized for the squadron? Another way of looking at that is making sure you are actually available to make the decisions and making decisions, and that information being actioned within the squadron in a timely manner. Because if everybody's waiting for you for information every month when arguably they need that information every week, then you have to figure out ways to optimize the battle rhythm. So just take your time and just kind of learned. You're going to do that during the immersion anyway, to make sure that so these are the battle rhythm events that you need to do. Sometimes these are going to be preparatory for, this will get you ready for the group level things and the wing level things, and that's fine. But make sure you just and make adjustments accordingly. If you notice that there's going to be a gap or a friction point, you have the ability to change it because you're the boss. And I think you should be doing that within the first 90 days. Again, but it only makes sense if you're doing it for the squadron, not you, but for the squadron. Third thing to think about with the first 90 days to do internally to the squadron is being present, okay? And what I mean by that is you're going to go do an immersion tour, right? The chief and or the shirt is going to take you around, visit all the work centers, just kind of see where their normal foxholes during the day. Within the 90 days, if that's the only time your squadron sees you, that is bad. You need to be present. You need to have a physical presence out there. You need to be not caught up in all the normal churn of battle rhythm that gets you to meeting to meeting to meeting. Your people that are seeing you're their new leader, you need to lead them. They need to see you. So be present, right? And so that could serve as a form of, if you're carving out time to make sure every Thursday afternoon is when I go out and about and the work center rotates. If that's consistent, it works for you, fine. I don't care. I was not like that. I didn't pre-block certain things into my schedule, what happened was I would already have white space, and depending on if I was going towards a meeting, I would deliberately just take a left turn and go somewhere else and go drop in on my team and see what's going on. When you're present as well, I think it's very, very important, especially in the first 90 days, to start breaking bread with your teammates. And so when you go visit them and you're present, you don't only have to talk about work. Just go in there. Go in there and be like just hanging out, and like, obviously if they want to bring up something about work, they can. You should address it. But if you're in there, just kind of taking a look what's going on and just finding common things to talk about. Maybe you'll find somewhere like, oh, someone's a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Who is that? Okay, you start talking about football, or you notice somebody in Comm Squadrons who always had nerdy stuff. You can find like Avengers things all over the place, and it's obvious. It's very easy to talk about MCU stuff for me. But finding those common things to talk about, because you're just a regular person too. Maybe you'll find out there's another parent out there that has kids that attend your school. Those kind of like small connections are going to be the important things that starts off a strong connection between you and your new squadron teammates. So those are the things that I thought about, like as far as if I only had to pick 3, and I'm not trying to give an exhaustive list. 3 things that I had to figure out and recommend for those first 90 days, right? So again, the first one is deliver your leadership philosophy in targeted audiences, analyze the squadron battle rhythm, and be present. Okay, so that's going down internal to the squadron. Going across, as far as your squadron commander peers. So what I recommended is that if it doesn't exist already, you need to develop the Fellowship of the Squadron Commanders. And yes, that is a Lord of the Rings reference. Okay. The idea is because these are going to be, they're your peers, right? They're going to be you're in a certain level within the organization that all of you guys are going to have the same sort of problems and issues because you're all commanders, right? You're all doing with personnel issues, managing the all the things going on in your squadron, your budget, and operationally your distinct function within the wing. And so not only so as a comm squadron commander, people would ask me all kinds of stuff about comm. Yeah, I should be there to help clarify some things. If you have questions, you may get asked like, hey, I'm trying to get this thing fast tracked. Yeah, have a conversation and functionally, they're going to be asking about those things, and you need to be, I would say you want to be available to have those conversations, if anything, to make sure that people have the right perspective of what they're trying to do. Oftentimes, especially for, if it's not familiar, I don't presume to know stuff about flying squadrons. And so I'd have to ask questions, but I need to know who to ask. So, I got the fighter squadron commander here. Let me ask about these things. So those kind of early networking things are very, very important. In addition, like I talked about, you are uniquely positioned that you will be handling squadron commander problems. Therefore, you should have a network where you can bounce off ideas, say, hey, I was thinking about doing this. Has anybody experienced with doing that? And you're going to hear the good and bad, right? You're going to hear some things. Don't do this. I learned this lesson. I made this mistake. And that peer network is going to be super important for you to take those lessons learned and move it into your calculus to think about. By all means, if you have the right kind of fellowship, they're not going to tell you this is the right or wrong way to do it or do it, whatever. It's your choice. You're the commander of your unit. You need to make that decision. But if you get the right peers, the right fellows next to you, they're going to give you some information that really should help enhance what you're going to do as the commander, because that's your job. Be the commander, make the decisions. Part 2, as far as your peer squadron commanders, find a mentor squadron commander. And so during my first command tour, Colonel Rob Bearden, he was the LRS commander at the time. He took me under his wing as far as he's been a graduated commander before. And I went through good and bad times with him as far as like myself, I should say, not with him. My mind and everything I was learning, I learned a lot from him. He was telling me like when I was panicking about certain things, he's like, it's not that bad. You're fine. Don't worry about those kind of things. Or he'd be the direct line. I mentioned the Fellowship of Squadron Commanders where that normally those events happen like maybe every other week, every 2 weeks, usually at a lunch kind of thing. But if you need to phone a friend right now, you need to make sure you have that phone a friend that you can trust and who's going to give you some advice or at least soundboard stuff for you. And so make sure you go find one. I was lucky enough to shout out to Colonel Bearden for being my mentor. And I really think that I became stronger as a leader because of his guidance and just kind of making sure I actually was okay. He just kind of nudged me along the way and just reminded me that things I was doing was okay. On the flip side, if this is going to be potentially your second or third squadron commander tour, then you should be looking out to be a mentor for someone else. It's going to be easy if you find somebody who has the right kind of personality because you already gel, and making sure that first term commander, you give him or her some advice. Obviously, let them do what they need to do. Don't give them advice when not asking for it, but definitely be on the lookout that like, hey, so you have a personality like I was. I'm just going to be curious if you have any questions, whatever it is. I'm here, more than happy to chat. So let's and build and reach out early and to find that community, that one-on-one relationship with someone. So mentorship, obviously, going to be very, very important, and it doesn't stop at any point in time during your career. Mentorship is very, very important when you're serving as a squadron commander. Part 3, I said this was possibly the most important part as being within your peers. Do not compete. Do not compete with each other. That is not your job. Your job is to lead your squadron. Your job is to take care of them. Your job is to carry out the orders of the day and all those things. Nowhere in that list of things will it say compete with your squadron commanders. All of us are aware, we've been in a situation where you've seen someone, especially like PME, where someone's trying to become DG. You're like, I get it, dude, or whatever. I get it. You're trying to be DG. You're a try hard. Get the fuck away from me. Don't be that guy or girl. Make sure that you're there to be supportive of them. You're not trying to one up anybody. I had a couple questions saying like, what do you do when you know someone is like that? And I was like, if you know someone is like that, actually the strongest thing you can do is have some sand and go up to that person and confront them and be like, hey man, do you realize, because they may not even know. Not confront's a strong word. Just have a conversation. It's just like, hey, I feel like the way that you're carrying yourself or the way you ask that question or engage with us, it seems like you're just kind of being too competitive. You're trying to one up everybody. Do you realize that's happening? I have not been in that position to tell it someone, but I know that's how I would encounter that situation. So, and you have to be brave enough to do that. I say I know I would do that because I've been in enough situations where my peers were feeling something, but they were, for various reasons, they may not have been comfortable bringing it up. So I'm like, hold my beer. Okay, I'll ask. And I don't mind doing those things, putting my neck out on the line if it ends up making us as a team of squadron commanders a stronger team. So I don't mind taking on that role. I'll tell you, I didn't get that confidence until my second squadron command tour, but it was eventually there. So definitely don't compete with each other. So in summary, 3 things you should be doing it within your first 90 days of squadron command. Don't compete with each other. Find a mentor or be a mentor, and establish the fellowship of squadron commanders. Finally, going up at the wing commander level. So first one is probably going to happen whether or not you, if your unit's probably doing things correctly, they're going to do this for you. It's schedule a one-on-one office call with your wing commander. And so those are going to be important. I bet you across all 3 of us during this commander panel, we probably said, make sure you have schedule office calls with not only wing commander, but probably all the group commanders as well. I think it's important for them to kind of get those one-on-one conversations. That way, if they have some very specific things they're looking for you as a squadron to help them out at the next level, they can have that one-on-one conversation with you about whatever that priority is. But more importantly, just you need to start building that human relationship with them, right? And so it understood, you're wing commander, squadron commander, but like as a person, tell me more about you, how you're getting settled. Oh, you have kids too? What school do they go to, or whatever it is. I have a dog, you have a dog. We just became best friends. Just interacting on a human level. Yes, they're the wing commander, but they're also just a person. And so they're going to encounter good and bad days too. And you're not going to be able to look out for each other and notice those things are happening if you don't have I'm not saying become best friends. Clearly, that's separate, and I don't recommend that. But like, you need to have a human interaction with them, and it starts off with just going and meeting and having a one-on-one office call. So very, very important to do that. Item number 2 is studying the wing's priorities. And so a lot of times, hopefully in your organization, they have some sort of strategic guidance document that exists. It could be like the campaign plan, like a formal campaign plan over the next year, phased out, all kind of jazz. Especially if you're working like a joint headquarters or air staff, you're going to find those staff kind of products. But if you're at a wing or something like that, it could just be a regular document PowerPoint presentation that says, here's the things we want to get after over the next year. Okay. If those things exist, and hopefully they do, study them. You need to study those things. And your job is to understand how your squadron integrates and it has their purpose nested within those priorities. How do you contribute to those things? And part of that's going to take some analysis from you to understand how you can do that, because you need to be able to translate down. I always had to, especially in the comm squadron, I would have to go tell people, I'm like, hey, do you understand like what you're doing here is translating to that sortie going off right now? The newbies, no, they're not going to understand that. So our job is to make sure at all levels, do you understand the importance of why this is part of the process, what this brings to the fight, and how it translates to the overall wing objective and your guys' priorities. And so if you don't know how to sell those things and can't connect the dots, you're failing your squadron because you owe that to them. So that means you're failing the squadron. So make sure you analyze those things, understand it, even like have a feedback session with your wing commander, maybe a follow on to the one-on-one, like, hey, sir, ma'am, so I see you publish these things. Here's how I think our squadron integrates with that. And then have a conversation. Maybe you're off, or maybe you misinterpreted something. That's going to be a very, very important piece to make sure that you stay aligned with what they're trying to do, right? And so if it's unity of effort, you need to all be paddling in the same direction. Final thing is demand mentorship. So it was definitely at both places, both at Holloman and JBear when I was there, we had consistent, it might have been quarterly, but the best one would be monthly. Is really depending on the timeliness or availability of the wing commander. At the squadron commander level, we would have mentoring sessions with our wing commander. No group commanders in the room, just us and the wing commander, and then we would just kind of shoot the shit. And depending on what the subject matters were of the day, like they usually came in there with certain things they wanted to talk about, usually upcoming projects. Here's some new things that are coming down. I anticipate the change of this in policies, and I'm going to need your help to make sure that it's articulated out to the field. All good stuff, but you get to hear it directly from the wing commander. That's so valuable. And then you open up the floor, and it usually was like non-attributional, like ask me whatever you want. And so we would take advantage of that, right? Why wouldn't you want to just peer into the insight as far as what a wing commander is thinking about? We wouldn't necessarily I don't ask him or her, how would you solve this question, this problem? That's probably something you don't want to do. Just ask bigger kind of things. Like, how is a wing going to challenge like this? What's the plan to tackle diversity here? How are we going to overcome the childcare situations because everybody's leaving, or all those kind of larger kind of things that are definitely at his level. Just to have that conversation to see where he's going. Eventually you're going to hear what the policy is at the wing staff meeting or whatever. But like, why not take advantage of that? That's the kind of stuff, if you want to get into the next levels, graduating up to in responsibility, you want to hear some of these stories because they're not all easy, right? Every decision that you go out there is not going to be just, that's clear and obvious. I picked COA B or whatever it is. Gain that insight, and they'll probably tell you when they failed. They probably tell you when they lost and they won and stuff like that. But like those kinds of conversations are important for you to just kind of build your tool set and how you do things and understand how your wing leadership operates. There's going to have those insights as far as how you can use that in order to frame. If that's how the boss likes to take in information, I'll make sure I shape it like that. That way they understand it. Don't try and make some, doctorate level thing when they just understand like easy playbook kind of stuff, right? You're already misaligned. So demand mentorship, make sure you have a larger presence and a group participation, whatever you want to call it, with your wing commander, because that's how you're going to grow. Both sides are going to benefit from that, right? And so hopefully that wing commander will be also open to some of the feedback you give. It should be taken as constructive. Obviously, you're going to be able to word it like that, but like it's an important two-way road that can have dramatic impacts across the entire wing. So really good stuff. In summary, again, going up towards a wing commander. First one, schedule that one-on-one office call. Number two, analyze the wing priorities. And then number three, demand mentorship. So that was the spiel. I gave that, and I usually did in like 15-ish minutes. I'm not looking at the clock to see how long this episode is, but like I did that and then left about 5 minutes of conversation. So it was good. So I do hope that and those are things that I've experienced and I found very, very beneficial. So I'm sure there are more. I said earlier that I'm not trying to make an exhaustive list. I'm saying here are some things that I think you should be thinking about. Because I know that the other two commanders, I know you in the audience, are probably going to have your own ideas of what you would do to the first 90 days. Have those things available. Have conversations. Curious to see what everybody's thinking about and where you'd like the Air Force to go to continue to develop squadron commanders as some of them depart. What are your lessons learned as you leave this summer? For the incoming ones, I congratulated them all. I told them, dude, shameless plug. I told them you have the best job in the Air Force. And I said, hey, so do you have? I only talked about the first 90 days. If you have, hold on a second. If you want to understand what to do over the entire command tour, I wrote this book called No Pressure, but don't mess this up. That talks about the entire, and I did a whole sales spiel. People were like, oh, okay. Brian sent me a text earlier. He was like, I said, hey, if anybody gives you feedback, good or bad, I want to hear it. Like Avila sucks, don't invite him back, or maybe good stuff. And he, hold on, let me get my phone. And the comment that he wrote back to me, which I was very appreciative, and actually, before I read this, I did get invited back at the end of February to participate in another Squadron Commander panel, so I'm very, very happy to have a repeat performance. But he wrote that the feedback was, really like Lieutenant Colonel Villa's talk, so much that I ordered his book from Amazon and read it over the weekend already. I told Brian, I'm like, dude, I'm going to make a plug. He's like, no, that's appropriate. It's Squadron Commanders. You wrote a book about Squadron Command. And so I told him, I was like, you could buy the book or not. I don't really care. But if you want to learn more about the things I think about outside of the 90 days over the entire command tour, here's a resource that is available to you. You can buy it from Amazon right now. And someone bought it, so I was happy about that. So if you're interested in more about what to do, not over just the first 90 days, yes, over the entire a command tour, no pressure still available on Amazon and BookBaby and everywhere. If you go to constantelevation.co, you can find exactly where to purchase the book. So more than happy to serve that as a talking point to just kind of, I got to figure out ways into how I'm going to grow the community here. There's definitely some people that if we share the same mindset, I want to be available and be in my my role as a coach, mentor, leader, whatever word that is. But like, I just know that I don't pose to have all the answers, but at least I'm more than willing to have conversation to help you find your own answers. So that being said, hope you guys have a safe and warm weekend, wherever you happen to be. And we'll talk to you next week. Peace.